Hello, and welcome to another episode of the ICA Sports and Fitness Science Council podcast for the ICA Chirocast. I love how long our titles are. So if you're new to this is the ICA Sports and Fitness Science Council's version of the podcast. So there's the ICA Chirocast, and then there's the ICA Sports and Fitness Science podcast. So welcome. We're glad to have you here. I'm Brant Hulsebus. I sit on the board of the ICA Sports and Fitness Science Council, along with my good friend here, Dr. Kyle Hoeft. Dr. Hoeft, do you want to say hello again?
Hello, my name is Dr. Kyle Hoeft. I've known Brant since we were in school together back in the 90s. It's good to be back again, and I look forward to talking more chiropractic.
Yeah, so if you caught last episode, we talked a little bit about overuse syndrome, and we had some feedback from that. Some people wanted to know a little bit more about that and more about the overuse of things. We talked about, you got to give joints time to heal, this and that, but we have this thing today, this is kind of like a part two, one would say. We have a thing today where you have little Junior and you want Junior to get a scholarship. Junior's going to go on and become this great athlete. And we find that a lot of these athletes we take care of today are only playing one sport. Dr. Hayek, do you want to talk a little bit about this phenomenon we're seeing with the sports?
It's very, very much the new thing now. We have parents, and I wish I could pull the stat in the study that I got this, but up to 27% of parents all across the country expect their child to be a college athlete, to play college sports, and basically to benefit from scholarship, which is kind of shocking. So the next thing that becomes a problem with that is immediately that these parents are specializing in the particular sport of choice, whether it's mom or dad that did it in school, or it's just what the child wants to do. That is what we're seeing epidemic all across the board. And it's alarming because right along with that are sports related injuries that I see on a regular basis in my office, and I continue to see, and it's continuing to progress, and we're seeing more and more of it.
Yeah, I remember when I was in high school. I went to high school mostly in Massachusetts, and in the fall I played football. That was my true sport I loved the most. But in order to play defense on the football team, I had to go off for the wrestling team because our defensive coach was the head wrestling coach. And then in the spring, I'd monkeyed around and play a little lacrosse, which is a big sport out east, catching on the rest of the country. But there was nobody that just played football year round. There was nobody that just played lacrosse year round. Even the guys that were all American at lacrosse from my high school, the seasons change, the sports change, and I'm sure that's what you grew up with too, correct?
Yeah, it is. So for me, I did basketball was always kind of my favorite sport, my staple sport, but I played soccer, I ran track, and I also ran cross country in high school. So I did 4 sports in high school. In the fall, I did cross country for 2 years, my freshman and sophomore year, and then basketball in the winter, track and field in the spring. And there was no overlap. So in high school, we had a summer league that was once a week for about 6 weeks over the summer. And it was one time a week where we were playing basketball, and that was it. There was no trainings, no practices. And then we went right into the next sport. And in the fall, it was cross country. And I did that for 2 years. And then I changed cross country, moved into soccer. And so instead of doing that, I did soccer. So that really made a big difference for me because I did not see the type of injuries that I'm seeing now, personally.
Yeah, I think today's a lot of pressure from a parent. The parent has a son or daughter that excels, and I'll just say hockey. That's my sport I take care of now, and they excel in hockey. And then somebody has an AU program or a off-season program, and they say, "Hey, you get your kid in my program. We're going to be doing this and this." So I think today the parents have a lot of pressure, not only just to hope to get the kid a scholarship, but to make the kid a better player from all these different programs. I know I never had any of those programs as a kid. You see a lot of that when I'm talking about the pressure
Absolutely.
from the coaches. Yeah.
It's pressure from the coaches. They a lot of times will make it clear to the child that what you want to stay on this team. Like, let's talk soccer. For me, I work with quite a few soccer athletes. My kids were soccer players in addition to other sports, and if they did not do the program, and in our case it was Indy Premier here, they would not get their top spot on the team. They might not get the second team. So it basically became a financial incentive too for these coaches. You know, obviously they want to help your child get better, but they also like to get the extra money. They want to get as many kids in the program as possible. So, you know, then you're running into this bottleneck of, okay, so the year-round training, and in your case for the hockey players, they're doing that year-round, and they're trying to play, you know, football in the fall, and so you can't do it all at once. It's too much. Even just two sports at once, it's just too much. You have to also spend time with your family. It's extremely important to, in my opinion, to be at home, have dinner. And granted, it might be later at night, but at least you're together having dinner. And that doesn't happen anymore. These athletes that I'm seeing, it's always a quick fast food run in between practices. Usually they're jumping right from football to maybe hockey or soccer. And there's no time to be, you know, with the family, and you know, that's a problem as well, in addition to the injuries.
Yeah, this book here, it's actually High Performance Nutrition for the High School Athletes, written by Coach Kigley, talking about how to live a life on the road in order to get your kids the nutrition they need when you're on the road, and how to, the one mom plans a pizza party for everybody. How do you not go to that pizza party because you know it's not really what your kid needs? So it's such a demand, but you're talking about that. My friend here actually wrote a whole book on this topic as he saw it being such an issue. But the playing the one sport, I just find that the joints in the body just wear out because they don't get a break. Is and then if they switch sports, what do you find if they like incorporate a different sport? Are you finding they're having less injuries, or and things get a chance to do better when they switch a sport?
So, and that's a really good question. I had a patient recently, soccer player, and he plays soccer year round, so he's doing the trainings outside of the fall season. But he also wanted to play football. He wanted to be a kicker, and actually be a wide receiver as well on the football team. And he's not even in high school yet. He's a grade school, junior high kid. And it's just, it was too much, even though that's a different sport. It's just too much to do them both, because now you're loading this poor kid. You're loading your back. You're loading the hip area, and he finally, his body broke down. And this poor athlete, not even in high school yet, eighth grader, has to rest a labral tear in the hip. And we never saw this kind of stuff. I'm sure you probably never saw this. Very rare. I also have basketball players that are doing it year round, and then they also want to play football. They also want to do soccer, and they got knee issues. They got knee issues, and they, you know, they complain about knee pain, like, you know, like an arthritic, you know, Medicare patient, for lack of a better description. And it's just, it's sad, and it's actually quite alarming. These can be avoided. This can be avoided, obviously, with proper chiropractic care to restore balance to the spine, but also, you know, being able to modify the training so it's just, it's not breaking the body down. You want to build it up.
Before we went live here, we were talking about two incidences where we actually want to specialize. So we talked about, you know, playing different sports, not over specializing in one sport and abusing the joints too much. But two areas where you do want to specialize. And I know here in my town, we have a place on the street from me where they're working with athletes, and it's important for them to know what sport the kid's playing because they know the most common injuries in that sport, and they know the areas they have to build up and make stronger. We worked a lot with them because it's a real easy predictor to see if the girls, especially girl athletes, are vulnerable for ACL tears based on pelvic rotation and hip flexor weakness. And so there, when you describe them, this is the sport I really want to play, specialize in that. And the other area we'll talk about here next, but you want to comment at all about making sure you have a good strength coach. And I think you're talking about how you've seen too many one size fits all.
Yeah, I think what with what you have going on in the big high schools, okay, the high schools that got, you know, thousands and thousands of kids, well, maybe not that many, but say more than 2,000, 3,000 kids. The weight room, the gym class, when they all go to the weight room, some of these classes are there's 60 kids at once. I mean, 60 kids, and you got one teacher, maybe two teachers. You know, he or she is not going to be able to observe everyone, and so it becomes a blanket workout, blanket exercise for everybody, regardless of, you know, whether it's a male or female, or a tall athlete, like a 6'4" athlete, or 5'9" athlete. Biomechanics are completely ignored. For example, if you take a 6'4" athlete, let's say a basketball player with extremely long legs, maybe a 36-inch inseam, right? And you expect that athlete to do a deep squat going beyond parallel or beyond parallel. That's going to really stress the knees if you're using a traditional squat weight directly over the shoulders. You take that same exercise with the deep squats with maybe a stockier athlete, a football lineman that maybe is only 5'9", 5'10", that is not a problem. Their biomechanics are completely different. Their knees aren't going to suffer anywhere near the stress that the taller athlete would. And so we're seeing strength coaches ignore that. They just don't even bring it up. And if a child, an athlete, is complaining of knee pain, well, maybe you just need to toughen up. Maybe you're just not, you know,
Lift more, try harder.
yeah. And that's not all the
Yeah.
case. The competition is fierce. All these kids know that. It's a lot different. Even the kids when we were young that didn't typically go to the sports and play sports are doing it now, because if they go home and they're not doing sports, there's nobody there. You know, the
Yeah.
days of playing football in the street with your neighbors when you get done with school, that's gone. Everybody's traveling, going somewhere.
Well, I find another area talking about the two areas of specialization where it might be good to let somebody know is in the chiropractic clinic, because I have the thing where I take care of, minor league hockey players, minor league basketball players. I take care of minor league soccer players, and even though they're not the farm team for the Blackhawks, but they're still playing professional hockey, and they're over high school age. We're talking about young 20s now. These athletes I work with, and they've gotten their whole that part of their life where they've only played the one sport. And for us, it's fun because we actually all the athletes before we take care of them, and we can see trends in them. I can see when I have a professional soccer player, I can see which is their dominant leg they kick with based on the way their hips rotated. I can see the basketball player because they got that one shoulder in front of the other shoulder for how they shoot. And we call it hockey back because they hold the stick, so they have a high shoulder on one side and a high hip on the other side for the way they skate. And when I see that, when I look at the coaches, the guys that used to play the sports, you can pinpoint the arthritis and this degeneration, because they didn't have chiropractors back then, exactly at those spots that I just discussed based on their sport. So I think it's really, really important you always discuss your main sport with your chiropractor, because you want to talk a little bit how we custom the care for these athletes then based on the sports they play.
Yeah. So yeah, another good question. If you have, for instance, a basketball player, for instance, if I have someone that's a basketball player come into my office, there are some key areas that need to be evaluated, addressed. The hip is one of the main ones, and the knees, basically the joints, the hip joint and below, because of all the kinds of cuts and turns. And it's going to be very similar in other sports like hockey and football too, but we really see that in basketball. So the lower extremities, proper exercises to strengthen the supporting muscles around the joints, like the knee joint, to help um, minimize stress on the ACLs. I mean, ACL tears, I think that's become a household name, even with non-athletic families. It seems like everybody knows what an ACL tear is now because we see it all the time. And we just saw, I think, a couple of the professional athletes this past weekend, for the Packers. Their, their top defensive player had an ACL tear, and
Non-contact ACL tear.
non-contact. And it's just like every weekend, or seems like every day, there's always someone that's got an ACL tear. So we're seeing that all the time. So back to the point about basketball, we also want to strengthen upper body too. So I'm gonna be focusing on typical basketball type muscles like shoulder muscles, back muscles, in addition to the arms, for instance. We probably won't focus a whole lot on bench presses for a basketball player, but definitely the shoulders. Shoulders would be a big one, because when you're playing defense, you need to put your arms out at your side. It's a big deal, and you need to have strong arms as well. So you can put up shots, the tricep, that's if you're shooting a jump shot beyond 3, you got to have some strength in that tricep if you're going to be able to launch that ball. That's going to differ from like a football player, for instance. For a football player, they're going to be explosive, right? Like especially if they're a lineman. And we're going to want to do some things like power cleans, right? Some leg presses, some, you know, traditional squats. Power cleans is a great one. So, different exercises for different athletes, and that's just something that I've personally dealt with for many years in my office.
Yeah, I've taken care of a hockey team now for 23 years, and I noticed that with the guys on offense and the guys on defense, you got the hip rotation, hip flexor issues, and you have a massive upper thoracic issue. But the guys that we have to change everything for, when we extra, like, is this guy left-handed or right-handed? I don't see the hockey back, and then it clicks. Wait a minute, this is one of the goalies, and the goalies get crash into head-on strength, and their C5, C6 disc areas are so beat up from all the whiplashes
Yeah,
and the traumas that a lot of people don't realize is a lot of times their neck actually hits the bar behind them, and they get severe neck injuries. So for me, knowing the sport that you're playing kind of gives me a guideline of where I should be zeroing in my chiropractic exam on and really trying to tackle.
right.
But then I see this carry over. We learn a lot of cool stuff in the sports world that we actually apply to everyday patients. I take care of a lot of the local prison guards here in town, and they've all got the same brachial radiculitis thoracic outlet syndrome going on because they have to sit in front of computer monitors all day long, looking at them with the mouse, clicking on the different screens. All of them have a numb right hand, except for the one guy who's left-handed. He has that going on. So even when you see the patterns in their spine, it's amazing how that carries over to the real world application of not the athlete, but the everyday person.
Absolutely.
Do you have any experiences with what I'm talking about with that?
Yeah. So the term that I'm sure you're dealing with on a regular basis as well is tech neck or text neck, or some people
Mm-hmm.
even call it social media neck. Those are some of the more common names, and that's when you lose the normal curvature, and we call it a lordosis of the neck. And that's due to, looking down. If you've got a phone in front of you looking down. In some cases, it's driving a car for hours on end. You're straight ahead, even though you're not looking down. When you're looking straight ahead, that still reduces the curve. So I always try to recommend to my patients, if you do, for instance, sit at a desk, you want to make sure that monitor as high as you can. So it doesn't necessarily mean you have to put your neck in extension when you work, but at least keep it out of flexion, and that can definitely minimize the potential issue of text neck and tech neck. So,
So,
without getting into too much detail on that is a really common one that I see every day. Every day.
okay. Yep. Well, I think we hit our topic here pretty good. Specialization is good when it comes to the chiropractic care. So the chiropractor knows what sports you play to kind of focus your care.
Yep.
I think specialization is a good thing when you're working with a strength conditioning coach who can actually give you the time that you need, not in a big, giant group that knows your sport to help you build the areas you need to build. But specialization is not good when you only play one sport your entire career and you don't bounce around doing other things and giving those joints a break. Did I hit it all there?
Yeah, I think we did. We hit a lot of the key main things that chiropractors or sports chiropractors like us see. And, there's, of course, more along those same lines, but those are definitely the main ones. And yeah, it was good covering those.
All right. Well, fantastic. Well, thanks for joining me for part two in this one. It was kind of a fun topic, but there was things we never got to last time, so we dove into a second one. So if you like this podcast, feel free to like and subscribe to us. Share this with your friends. And if you want to learn more, we have exciting conference coming up. We are very close to launching the first ever ICA Sports Symposium designed to help you become a team chiropractor wherever you are. The goal of this is not only to teach you technique, whether it's working with strength athletes, whether it's subconcussive injuries that might happen on the sideline, how to take care of them safely and effectively there, but also how to walk into a room and sell yourself to a team as a team chiropractor, how to work with the other physicians and doctors in the room, because there's a skill there too, and how to talk to athletes, because their body is their only their sole possession. It's the only thing they have to make money is their body, so they're going to approach their body different than somebody else. So we look forward to seeing that. So feel free to go to the chiropractic.org, find out more about the ICA Sports and Fitness Council, and we'll see you real soon. Dr. Kyle, I'll let you say goodbye here and add anything I left out.
Nope, I think that was good, and look forward to, to discussing more content at a later date, another podcast, and it's been fun. Thanks for having me.
All right. Goodbye, everybody.
Bye.